I came to US as a Jewish immigrant from Soviet Union, um, refugee from Soviet regime, from people like Putin, basically. Okay, I did not have a penny to my name. I didn't have any savings. I see, Dylan, either something that's really, really positive for everyone or something that's really, really bad for everyone, but nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
And in order for this to be good and very, very positive, listen to me. We need to all hug each other and sing Kumbaya.
Do you think it's living up to the hype? And if so, what do you think's next for AI?
I have the answer for you.
All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thanks so much for tuning in once again. Today, we're incredibly excited because on the show, we have with us a serial founder and a Silicon Valley veteran who I'm really looking forward to digging deep into his story because it sounds super interesting. Today on the show, we have with us Gennady Galanter.
Yeah, Gennady, and I had the privilege of studying with Gennady at Harvard Business School. And thank you, Gennady, joining. And I know you got an amazing story. We want to unpack that story and get to know you much better in deep.
I appreciate for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dylan. Pleasure meeting you.
So, Gennady, this whole podcast is about success, right? And so we need to start with something pretty fundamental, and that is, what does success actually mean to you?
What does success mean to you? Ideally, ideally, how I would like to measure myself is as we go through life, we're going to be remembered for touching people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another, we're touching people's lives. Our
Yeah.
employees, our friends, our families, children, their parents. It's how many people we touch. As many
Mm-hmm.
people as we positively touch and whose life we can improve. That's the measure of success. If people go through life touching people's life positively and improving them overall, and
Mm-hmm.
the more that is, the more I measure success.
Yeah. So creating a
Starting,
positive
starting with
impact.
our families, starting with our families
Yeah.
and outward.
Yeah. 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 That's a good one. Like, so you want to create a positive impact to your family and everyone that you touches, right? You work with. Yeah.
When we're gone, that's who's
Yeah.
gonna remember us, the people whose life we touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Absolutely.
And so I suppose, to understand the man who's sitting in front of us right now, we really need to go back to kind of early Gennady. So can you take us back to kind of your early childhood and
Well, of course,
walk us through that?
I am exactly the product of bringing, obviously, my DNA. Okay, we're talking about Ukraine, Soviet Union, 1960s when I was born. I was born in a family of poor people, engineers. My dad was um, an industrial engineer. My mom was agricultural engineer back in the days, so very, very poor family. And then the product of a broken family, divorced parents, etc. So in many ways, sort of having to defend for self from early on, from a very, very humble upbringing. I don't know if you knew this story, John. Yeah, you know, it's like coming up with ideas how to make money when I was in elementary, starting from elementary school, guys. It's like
Yeah,
figuring out. Think, do you want me to tell you what my first business?
Yeah, yeah, please.
please.
Whatever you can share, that would be amazing.
This friend of mine had Playboy magazine. Somehow it got into his hands. We were probably in our, I don't know, maybe third grade, something like that.
Wow.
And what we did in my kitchen. when my mother was gone. He was holding the magazine down with his hands, and I was standing there with a photograph and a picture and photograph, remaking the photographs of the pages. And then I printed it in my dark room, and then we sold it in school, the photo to the boys. This was my first venture, honest God. Well, of course,
Ah,
we got caught. His parents were brought. My parents were brought. All in all, it's in many ways it's a product of having to survive, not necessarily not to the point surviving on the street, but having
yeah,
to having to care, having to fend for some. Plus, I'm short. My height played a role, like my appearance and how I try to attract people and bring attention. My teacher in school had said to me, "Don't make clown out of yourself." She was like pointing that I'm being a clown in class. This is how I made living throughout the last 40 years of my career, being this person who is trying to attract other people. I'm trying to build this character that's attractive to others. And that created, survival skills, flexibility, ability to adapt the situation. A lot of that formed this adaptability to life. I feel comfortable. I've been in situations, many difficult ones, on all sorts of like legal, illegal, whatever, and I survived through the last, you know, 50 plus years of career. Um, because I had to that early having to fend for self, that formed traits that I think I leverage a lot. Not a lot of people like as flexible as I am to be in Harvard crowd and not Harvard crowd at all, if you know
mm,
what I mean. Yeah.
And so during that early time, if you were kind of fending for yourself, was there anyone that you were kind of looking up to during that period?
I had this guy in my life that he must have had maybe eighth grade of education, probably not a lot more than that. And he was making money. This guy was making money. He was an entrepreneur. Alec was his name. He was much older. And I asked him, "Alec, how is that? How do you do that?" He says to me, "In life," he used a Russian word for that, but I'm going to say it in English. He said, dumb people win." Dumb. So what he meant by that? He says to me, smart people that see a lot more than I do, they see obstacles. They see obstacles. They see obstacles. They think through it. They don't do this. But because he wasn't smart enough to think all the way through, and because he fundamentally was positively thinking guy, and ignoring and or unable to see these
mm,
difficulties, challenges,
mm,
and so I'm sort of took after that, frankly. Like
mm,
this is
yeah,
this is who I
yeah.
am. I've taken risks in life that I shouldn't have taken in retrospective. But if I didn't take them, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Great advice, actually. So it's more of whoever doing things go further than someone analyze, doing a lot of thinking, and end up not doing things, right? That
See
absolutely makes
that
sense, right?
so many times. Or even now in my surrounding, like I'm surrounded by people smart, brilliant,
Yeah.
talking about opportunities. It's one thing about talking about it, and another thing about pursuing opportunity.
Mm.
I'm
Absolutely.
pursuing opportunities because I sort of this is who I am. I have to go and fight and get the new thing. Yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a massive favor of you guys. At the moment, we're putting a big priority on growing our YouTube channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to us there, if you could head over to YouTube, type in the Quest for Success podcast, or just click the link down in the show notes below, head over to our channel and subscribe to us there. you'll get access to all of our video interviews that we do with our guests. And it will do us a massive favor because it will help us grow the show, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode.
So, Gennady, going back to that early days of your life, was it Ukraine is part of Soviet
Of
Union,
course, of
And
course,
so that was like a communist kind of
of
country, right?
course, of
W-
course.
So it's kind of foreign to me. Like, what's the life living in a like a communist
Oh,
regime?
that's whole different story, Joe. I mean, I left Soviet Union when it was still Soviet Union,
Hmm.
before the Berlin Wall. Well, I came to US as a Jewish immigrant from Soviet Union, um, refugee from Soviet regime, from people like Putin, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, so I came here to US. Here I say here. I know you're in Australia, but I came here to US as a Jewish escapee. I was 27 years old, so I served in Soviet military during Afghan war.
Wow.
Wow.
I volun
Wow.
I volunteer. I was one of those people. I was so indoctrinated by the regime. Like these people, these poor people that are watching television in Russia now, poor people, because I understand that I was a victim from Soviet television when I was growing up, like in my 17th, 20, I was completely indoctrinated by that regime. Smarter
Mm,
people listened to Voice of America, Free Europe, etc., like radio stations that translated, but that took effort. But people like me who didn't want to take effort, I was listening to the damn television, and I was completely indoctrinated by the Soviet ideas until
mm,
my eyes opened up at one point.
mm, mm, mm,
Um,
And what was that point? What made you open your eyes?
so people started to leave. People started to leave. A lot of my friends left all over the world: Australia, Canada, Israel, Germany, Canada, US. And they started to write letters.
mm,
These are friends that I grew up with. So, but before that, and so, and then the war, and then I started to participate in anti-war. When I came back from the military, I served 2 years. Tank, tank. I'm a tank guy.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
When I came back, I was anti-war protester, arrested, etc., etc. Uh, and then the war wouldn't stop. It was late late 80s. We had a little baby,
mm,
my ex-wife and I, and we didn't want child to grow in with
mm,
that regime. We didn't know that it's gonna fail. We didn't
mm,
know that it's ultimately gonna fail.
Mm.
So we escaped,
mm,
came to us, and made life out of made life here in California. Look, became
mm,
Americans for many
mm,
years. For many years, I was very proud to be able to say I'm an American. For many
mm,
years, every time
mm,
when I would be asked, "Who are you?" My accent. Obviously, people would ask about my accent, but they would ask, "Who are you?" I would say, "I'm an American." Okay.
mm, mm,
Now I prefer to say that I'm Ukrainian, frankly,
mm.
because now I'm Ukrainian. So that's a
Yeah.
big
So,
find. That's a big find for me. That's a big find
That's
for me
good.
to become belonging to that country. It's a big find, ultimately.
Yeah, so Gennady, that transition from coming from Ukraine in a difficult time, I guess. What was that
Oh,
like?
immigration. Oh, you know what we say? You know what the people that immigrate that go through this first wave, the
Yeah.
first time, first thing. Oh, you know what we say about ourselves? And it's so true. We came to US. I had Max, my son, who is now 36. He was 1 year old. So we've been here for
Wow.
35 years.
Wow.
And I had $500. And I didn't speak a word of English. Not a single word. Jim, I didn't speak a word of English. Not at all. Oh, this was so amazing. Well, first of all, I think that America, that US, that country that I came to, the fact that it enabled me to go through, from nothing, from $500 to okay. I don't know if I would call myself successful. Okay, that's different. Measure of success is difficult. Okay,
Yeah.
it's all comparable.
Yep.
Okay, I mean relative. Okay, I can. I'm probably okay. I'm probably more successful than my father. I'm more
Yeah.
successful than my father. Okay. Um, but the immigrants that come like I did with $500 that have to make life in a new country where you don't speak the language. We um we say that you have to eat a pound of shit. No, not pound. 25 pounds of shit being an immigrant. And until you do, you're not gonna pass through that experience. You just have to go through that experience.
Mm. Mm.
And we all did. And we're in our own ways.
Yep.
In our own ways. My father worked like for other people and cleaned their apartments, and his wife did too. They're both engineers. They had to go through that shit.
Mm.
I had to go through mine, whatever it was. So we did that. And if you eat fast, you just have to eat fast and pedal fast. You eat fast, you get to that point, you pass that, you're good. So I did that. Meaning like learning the language, becoming American, like understanding tradition, in that sense.
Mm.
So
Mm.
a lot of learning, and
Oh yeah. So a lot of learning, a lot of struggle. I mean, I had a similar kind of background. I came like I didn't have children, but yeah. So 35 years ago, I came to Australia. I had a massive struggle, just like you. Probably you had a bigger struggle as a with a child, 1-year-old child. But when you're going through this struggle, when was that defining moment, right? Kind of a change your life, right? You realize.
it's actually happened very, very quickly for us. 6 months, or maybe what, 8 months into living here in the valley. My father lived here in the valley, so I came
Uh-huh.
here to be here in California. I think very quickly. Uh, uh, a lot of my peers, they're like, okay, go and rent tuxedos at the shopping mall, go work at the taxi, deliver pizza. I said no, no. So I focused on studying. 6 months into that, or 7 months into that, I got myself enough language to say something in the interview. And I got lucky because I got hired by this amazing woman, Nancy Curfew. So we're talking about 35 years ago. Okay,
Yep.
34. Okay. We're still friends with her.
Wow.
She was the person who hired me for my first job. There was a company called Computer Sciences Corporation. It's one of the largest in US corporations. They do a lot of government contracts. Military, government, big industrial contracts. They have, at the time they must have had 150,000 people employed.
Wow.
It's like Accenture, that sort
Hmm.
of thing, but building massive systems. We're talking about 35 years ago, guys.
Mm.
Yep.
For federal government, for submarines, for things that are flying up in the air, for satellites. Okay.
Yep.
Uh, there was an ad in the newspaper. It's a pre-internet time. It's an ad in the newspaper,
Yeah.
and there was no way to do research. What is CSC? I did When I was going into the interview. I didn't know that CSC was one of the. It would take me to go to the library to find out. No, okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't about to do that. It just said, CSC is looking for So I came in with a piece of paper, the newspaper from Sunday newspaper, which frankly I stole. Okay, I stole that paper from every morning, every Sunday morning. I would go around the neighborhood and I would steal Sunday newspaper because it had ads for job. I steal it for job for ads for job, and I got it from one of those papers. And I came for the interview. I didn't know who they were. They were one of the largest in U.S. companies. I had no idea. Sitting there in the lobby waiting for her to come out. I didn't know that I was waiting for a meeting with a woman. Nancy is from New York, and she speaks with New York accent, heavy New York accent. And I like need, not only could I not understand English in general, but understanding her was just impossible. I couldn't understand what the hell she was talking about. Oh, it was so difficult. So years later, they hired me for a job. I don't
Uh-huh.
know what I said. I said to her in the interview, I was 27 years old at the time when this is all happening. She goes, "Why should I hire you?" She says. She looks at me, Nancy. I go, "Listen, look at me. I'm 27 years old. I have a child and a wife. We're fresh off the boat. I'm sitting there and saying this in my first interview. I've never had
Yeah.
another interview before
Yeah.
this. This is my first interview. I just came with a piece of paper. And I'm saying to her, I came here 7 months ago or 6 months, whatever it was. And I'm just starting to learn English, saying my first words. I have my son, and I realized that the people in my age in this country, how much they already achieved, like where they are. You better believe I'm gonna dig very fast to get there. I'm just gonna dig faster than they are. And she goes, "When can you start?" So, so this was one, and so I asked her years later. I worked for that company for 6 years. I worked there until mid 90s, I guess. 96. I worked there until 96, 6 years.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I grew up there. It was a good
Yeah.
environment to grow up in. Very good mentorship and good projects. Um, I asked her like, why did you hire me? There was a conversation years later. I go, like, didn't you understand that I didn't speak English? Like, didn't you know? Didn't you? Of course I did. She says to me, while I quote, while we were walking, she said, Nancy said that to me. I will forward this interview to her so that she is reminded of this. Um, by the way, she hired me for another job afterwards. There was another
Okay.
company. She went to work for another company and brought me there too.
Yeah.
But she said to me, I made a decision to hire you while we were walking from the lobby where I met you before we made it to my office. I go, how did you do that? And she said, the way you smiled, the way you shook my hand, the way you greeted me. I already knew that I was going to hire
Wow.
you. And then she said that company had a motto, which I subscribed dearly. Like they taught me this, and I subscribe dearly to this idea because I've seen them living by this idea as far as HR and human capital is concerned. It is they were hiring swans. This is Nancy again. She was explaining swans, swan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Smart, the person who is smart, uh, working hard, willing to work hard. Okay, we're not called workaholic, called work hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm ambitious and nice.
Okay.
Okay, and the idea is that you can teach people other skills, but this you either have them or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You either
Mm-hmm.
have ambitious person or you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were looking for that. Somehow she made that connection as we worked through the whole. I don't know. It's debatable, but okay. But I like the idea, and
Yeah.
in my life throughout later on, I adopted this idea when I managed my own company.
Yeah.
I tried to do that, and I taught the CEO who is running the company now. I taught him the same. Look for swans.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
It's a good one.
that was one kind of that was a big thing in my career. 6 years that formed a lot, and then another big. There was some milestone. There was another big part of my career was PwC.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that went for years too, like number of years. I actually
Yeah.
lived through the merger between Coopers and Lybrand. So I was hired into Coopers and Lybrand.
Uh-huh.
It was Big Six at the time,
Yeah.
which later became Big Four. And so part of the merger, Price Waterhouse and Coopers and Lybrand merged, and it became PwC.
All right.
So so I that was part of my journey. Interesting project, like a lot of growth into project management, project like
Mm-hmm.
leadership, account management. So I learned by that time, we're talking about late 90s, late
Mm-hmm.
90s already. Yeah. So I did that. And then for a number of years, I went and I went from consultancy because the first two gigs were consultancy. I went to work for a software engineering company, Siebel. I don't know if you ever heard the name.
Sibyl. Yeah.
Siebel Systems. We're talking about late 90s, early 2000s. It's a large 5,000 people, 5,000, large corporation. And I developed a product line. I was responsible for a number of products. All had to do with service delivery. Service delivery. An engineer gets on the truck, goes to deliver service vac equipment or whatever it is. So it's that sort of managing that sort of business,
Yeah.
billing, financials, navigation, routing, inventory management. So
Mm.
did a lot of that. Um,
Yeah. So,
And
Gennady, when do you like, I remember you were saying when you're year three, grade three at school, thinking of doing your own like
so
photography and selling it.
I always wanted to be. I always wanted to be entrepreneur,
Yep.
but it's so I never had this opportunity, job. I
Mm-hmm.
never had an opportunity to be an entrepreneur because I lucked out. And from the get go, from the first job I had in the US, I was making decent living.
mm,
I was a well paid employee, family house, etc. So I was a well paid employee throughout my career until 2009 happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that career going on for many years, and I always did pretty well. Well, for an employee,
Yep.
plus my ex-wife was making very good living. So, what average, average suburban white collar family.
yeah.
Okay, and then I'm 47 years old, and 2008 comes the crisis.
GFC.
I was working in private equity at the time, which obviously collapsed, as many others. And I got executed. I got executed close range style. And here I am, 47, in the middle of the wars, partially because of this. It doesn't matter. Um, and so it was like, okay, it was realization that I'm not employable. The situation, the market.
Yep.
It was clear that I'm not someone who is employable. Okay, so what is my option? My option is to do something. Finally, finally, I was in a position. I didn't have a penny. Okay, I did not have a penny to my name. I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any savings. I had $45. I'm very, 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 very slightly exaggerating, but not far. And so I was living in my ex-wife's house. That ultimately I left on the first floor. Luck would have it though. So this is like sometimes luck, jam. Sometimes you have to be in the position like let's say I will tell you what happened, and then assume the same situation would happen if I had my job. We'll just assume like, two scenarios.
Yep.
I don't have my job now. I'm just sitting at home, on the beach. A guy walks into my life who I used to work for and says to me, "Hey, you're not doing anything anyway. Why don't you go on the plane, jump on the plane, fly to Ukraine?" This is 2000, this is late 2009 we're talking about, or something like that. Fly to Ukraine and put together a team of people. I need a project. I have a project. I have $1 million budget. Get on a plane, build me a team. Here's $1 million for a year. For a year.
Yep.
Okay. If I had my job, and if it wasn't 2008 but 2007, so like, what do you think I would tell?
No way.
Okay, so I have to go on another continent. Here I'm living in California. I have to go into another continent, to the country that I haven't been living for 20 years now. By that time,
Yep.
I haven't been living there for 20 years already. This is like, to me, it's a completely new country. Now I'm immigrating back in from a country that I've never been part of. I left Soviet Union. Here it's now Ukraine. I've never been there. I visited funeral. My mom died there, so I went to the funeral
Uh-huh.
in 2006 or 2001. This was, and now it's 2009, 2010. I said yes. I said yes, and I knew that I would not be able to execute the operations. We're talking about engineering operations. Okay, I knew that we're not. I am not like I'm just not that character. I'm not the character to run an engineering team. Look at me, how I'm gonna run. Come on, clearly I'm not that guy. Um, but I knew the guy. Of
Yep.
course I did. He was in Saint Petersburg, Russia. Nick, his name was, and I knew him from my previous job, the one that I got executed at. He was still
Yeah,
there.
right.
So I got executed in San Francisco office here in Bay Area, but they had an arm in St. Petersburg, and I
Hmm.
frequently traveled there back and forth because they were doing job for us. And I met him on many occasions. He was the right guy for that. He was. I called him up. I go, listen, I have $1 million budget. We can build this company. We can build this. Let's go do this. And I convinced him to leave St. Petersburg. I moved him to Odessa. And between him and I, we built. We started recruiting that summer 2010. But by October, we opened up with 22 people team for this company in the area that my friend was the CTO.
Hmm.
And we started to build products for them. And we created, and an amazing, an amazing engineering team, which at one point grew 130 people.
Wow.
As they were growing, we were growing too. But so at one point, my partner Nick says to me, "Okay, let's look at this." Not and because I had that mindset that this was still a project, and he pointed to me, "We have a company. Let's grow the company." And all I had to do is to I did my Rolodex. I did my Rolodex, and all of a sudden, I have one project, I have another project, I have third project, I have fourth project, I have 10th project. And all I did, I would just call people that I knew, Jim, around my network, just friends and
Yep.
family. And I would say, I'm doing this, I have a team of engineers. Here it wasn't a very smart strategy. There was nothing to that strategy at the time. It was a stupid strategy. It was a stupid strategy. It was not a strategy at all. Okay, speaking like in terms of Harvard speak, it wasn't a strategy. It was survival.
Remember, hope is a strategy. So it was
Right.
more of a hope, right?
Yeah, I will speak on that as well on the issue of hope. And so, okay, I did what I did. I did the right thing because through that I created a portfolio of products, a project, sorry, portfolio of projects that Nick, my partner, was managing, creating teams. All we were doing is just creating team for this client, creating team for this client, creating team. And Nick was managing. By the way, Nick is in OPM 63. He's graduating.
All right.
He's graduating in March. He's graduating in March. So we created this platform of projects that were generating profits for us. Profits here, profits here, profits here. We created a project management organization that managed these projects. We created relationships with these clients, and then when we created profits, and then we decided that we're going to invest these profits in putting bets on various verticals, on various technological verticals, making investments. So, for example, we're talking about 2010. So, for example, we made a bet on um, mobile application development as a thing. 2006 iPhone comes out, 2010 we're in 2010. Mobile gaming, mobile applications, mobile commerce, mobile this, mobile that. We found the guy, hired, hired the guy, made him a general manager, responsible for a line of business, mobile. Go ahead, build this vertical. We did the same with blockchain. Remember blockchain?
Yeah.
Yep.
We did the same with e-commerce. So we kept create.
Verticals.
We were thinking about. We always the key. We always keep this off a person. Do we have a guy? Do we have a guy
Hmm.
that we can see that can lead this? I mean, we were looking for the guy that we can see that can create business out of it. Okay, so we kept finding these guys. Created some better, some worse. Okay, so we created mobile, uh, blockchain, e-commerce, and this one guy, Stepan, he was in Kazan in Russia because we also had a group there, 140 people at one point. We grew that organization. That one was also all of this were a lot of this were opportunistic. Like, okay,
Hmm.
someone would come to me and say, "Hey, can you guys develop mobile applications?" We would turn around and say, "Who do we know that can do this? Okay, can you do it? Okay, you're gonna be the guy." And the same, like, can you develop a blockchain? Yeah, we can develop blockchain. Who do we know that can do that? And so we, in many ways, at the time, I will make a point. There will be a punchline, I promise. We were acting very opportunistically,
Yeah.
much like the initial, these foundational accounts, much like they came to us through personal relationships and nothing more fundamentally. I wasn't selling anything else other than personal relations. Much like that, other business came to us also opportunistically. Someone would come say, build mobile for me. But from that, when we would find a person who can create business out of these opportunities, we would then go back to market and say, we're doing this. And it worked. So we started to grow this business. They started to grow. We were taking money from our projects and putting them and investing into the project that these guys were creating for us. And they were all creating cash flow. They were all cash flow. It's a cash flow positive business. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any investors.
Mm.
I don't have any investors in this business. We started opportunistically with the
Mm.
project. And so that was going on until I would say 2015, like 5 years. We were trying all these different things and we were watching how each of these verticals will grow. There was, it's not that they were sort of competing because we couldn't define what is the brand. What is the brand
Yeah, yeah.
about? It was very because the guy who is doing mobile, he wanted brand to be more about studio,
Mm.
and the guy who is running our data group from Kazan, hardcore engineering, Amazon Web Services, data, data lakes, infrastructure. It has nothing to do with studio. So that was creating conflict until this guy, Stepan from Kazan. I was a CEO. My partner Nick was a COO,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who ran all the projects. This guy Stepan called me up in 2015. This was, I think, and said to me, "Whatever you do, you don't need to choose my line of business because he was also one of the GMs. But pick one," he says. He was having this conversation with me on the phone. I was somewhere in the trip with my wife, and he called me up. He said, "Look, you guys, it's up to you, being me and my partner. But you better off picking one thing and focusing on one thing. Just learn to do one thing well," he says to me. Learn to do one thing well. And that message resonated with me very well. That idea that we need to have a strength and vision and perseverance to forget about everything else and not to do everything else, but focus on this one thing, not necessarily this. And so I went to my partner Nick with this idea. He didn't want to hear any of this. He's more an opportunist. He's more of the person who wants to take chips and put chips on the table. Like, okay, it's not bad. It's not a criticism.
Yeah, it's working, right? Yeah.
It's not a criticism. Okay. If you're, let's say, a generalist, if you're a generalist, and if whether it's mobile or blockchain or data centric or this e-commerce or whatever else, we had some other probably ideas we were testing. If it doesn't matter to you, like what specifically that is, but you're looking at this more from as okay, I'm in risk management. I wanna put my eggs in different baskets. That's a different strategy. That's a different vision. And our conflict between him and I was about this because I look at this as an entrepreneur and a technologist and a marketer that's looking for Like, okay, how do we create a niche? We're a minute company, not funded by anyone. How do we create
Mhm.
a niche for ourselves, and how do we keep growing? Yeah. And so I'm trying, and he's more again, not bad, not good, but his thought at the time was, let's distribute the risks. And so, I mean, that debate went for um, probably went for 6 months.
Mhm.
I ultimately, thanks God, convinced him. We said goodbye to all other GMs. We thanked them for the business. Thank them. We said, I mean, we did all well. We said goodbye very well to everyone. And we said, okay, let's take this guy because he seems like the guy who will lay golden eggs. We believe that. We believe that the data centric world, we saw that coming. Like he was growing that line from 2014, and we saw that uptick, tick, tick, tick. We saw that, okay, they started with engineering the infrastructure. They started with the infrastructure first. How do you create infrastructure for our clients? Cloud, on-prem, off-prem, hybrid cloud. So we started with hardcore infrastructure stuff. And then once the client got the infrastructure, how do we automate this process? So we got into process automation and continuous delivery, continuous integration of code delivering into production. So we started with that. So we were developing skills as the needs of the clients that we had progressed because they were all going through the same journey to get to data ultimately and leverage and mine the data. And so we were developing these practices, these capabilities, mining data, extracting value from data, learning from data, machine learning, now AI, generative AI. So we basically went from the last 7 years or 8 years we've been at this, no longer than that. 10 years. We've been at it
Okay.
10 years. 10 years. Of course, what am I saying?
Yeah.
11 years. We've been at this from 11 years. When he started that idea in 2014, he picked on that first. This guys, yeah, I'm telling you what the other guys did. They
Mhm.
did
Mhm.
something else. And so I said to my partner, let's bet on this guy. And what happened? What happened? We made him a CTO first. He became a CTO. We started to promote his vision and drive that as a theme of the company. It's it did not go without struggle.
Mhm.
And of course, it did not go without struggle. I mean, we lost people, we lost, I mean, we had to break some bones.
Mm.
We had to break some bones. Internal, internal transformation in many ways, internal transformation. And ultimately, what happened? Ultimately, in 2022, we my partner and I stepped out from running the operations. We formed the board of directors. We brought in an independent an independent chairman, Surjit Singh. He's from private equity. He's very smart, Indian guy, very very smart. Harvard, Harvard. I don't know if MBA. It was one of the Harvard business programs.
Mhm.
Very very strong guy. He runs. He's our chairman,
Yep.
basically a referee between the two 50-50 founders. And he with him coming in and creating forming the board. Uh, One of his conditions was that Nick and I step out from running the business and go to college, and that's how I ended up at
In Harvard, yeah.
OP.
Oh wow.
That's how I ended up in OPM. Um, and so Stepan is basically now is company CEO. We're helping him to run. Like we're helping from the board. He's doing well. The company is going through transformation to becoming, because we've built so much business, Nick and I, in this idea of team augmentation as a business. It was generating a substantial portion of our revenue, a very large portion of our revenue. And now, first time in last quarter, the company revenue generated from consulting engagements around AI, data, machine learning, or surpass surpass the the traditional
Mhm.
revenue. So he's growing. That part of business is growing very, very fast. Last year we grew 65% in that part of,
Wow.
yeah.
Like, given your expertise in, artificial intelligence and that, that being your main business line, it's quite a big buzzword right now. Do you think it's living up to the hype? And if so, what do you think's next for AI?
I have the answer for you. Okay, yeah, I can tell you what I believe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
Okay, strike that. I have the answer for you. I have a very strong opinion, and it is so strong that I am going after it as an investor and as an entrepreneur and investor. Okay. Um, a couple years ago, I actually formed, since I had this opportunity with Harvard, and since I had my hands are free from having to run the business. It's a beautiful situation when you have time to actually look at what's next. And I have been for the last 3 years. This is going on for the last 3 years. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Jem. I think in some of our conversation I might have mentioned this technology or this idea to you, or I discussed this at Harvard in class, but I will
Yep.
repeat myself because I'm a big believer. So I started a company. um, it's an early stage startup that has an opportunity. It is called Cerebral.
Uh-huh.
Cerebral is for the part of a human brain where reasoning and thought rationing is happening. Okay, it's a part of the human brain. So it's a cerebral AI, for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the belief is the modern systems that we have, the systems that are based on neural networks alone, things like large language models as we know them, right? Um, okay, I'm not being original or saying anything new to you when I repeat like this idea that people say that it's a predictive typing on steroids. Right? It doesn't it doesn't have a thought. There's no thought behind what it's producing.
Yeah.
And so if you take this further, okay, what is the best opportunity of humanity is following this idea of feeding the data about the world, feeding the data into the system. If there, I don't think the assumption that if we feed all of the data in the world, AI in its modern form somehow will figure out, let's say, a Newton law of physics as Newton had figured it out. No matter how much you explain the falling apple or planets rotating around solar system, the AI in its current form will not figure out relationship between gravity,
Mm.
mass, the distance. It took human mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the question is, what is that delta? What is the delta between observation and doing and actually doing reasoning that's based on information, based on knowledge. And so what's coming into the picture now is a technology or idea that was actually not new in 1956. The idea that I'm discussing now, it existed from mid 50s. It's called symbolic artificial intelligence. In fact, back in the 50s when it was originally invented, uh, the scientists that invented this term called it the real AI, the true AI, the real AI. And it's really what separates neural networks. That's basically a collection of relationships between symbols, between terms. Where in the symbolic AI, the knowledge, instead of being inferred from data, it's being encoded and defined. For example, if you define laws of physics, like laws of gravity or laws of thermodynamics, or other fundamental things about the fundamental reality of this of the of yeah fundamental reality, yeah,
Yeah.
laws of physics, laws of chemistry. If you manage to define those at the most fundamental level and build on those knowledge base, the belief was at the time that you were able to create what they were calling at the time or referring to as uh, um, knowledge. What do they call them? Knowledge expert systems. They call them expert systems. If, if you had basically, they looked like, if you look online, expert systems, you would see it's something that looks like an ATM machine that they would install on the floor of some engineering organization. There were hundreds of specialties, and you would have a line of engineers going to this machine, typing a question in plain English, for example. I need to calculate a radius of this thing, and it would create, based on knowledge and based on information that you're entering, it would create the response that actually based on the knowledge. It has nothing to do with neural networks. It was
So, can I just jump in there? What separates symbolic AI from artificial general intelligence, AGI?
so what you would need, to me, AGI is a collection of stitched together vertical domains
Mm.
defined in a symbolic fashion, thin razor thin domains that
Yeah.
you can refer to. So you have a layer that's your large language model effectively that understands what is the question. It figures out that to answer this question, I need to reach out to calculate this. I need to reach out into a knowledge system that I have associated with me, for
Yeah.
example. So, for example, Jam, we're approaching a project with Kuchenmeister, Hans Günters,
Oh yeah, yeah,
our
yeah.
partner
You mentioned.
in bakery, where our thought is that we're going to be able to define physical processes and reasoning about adjusting parameters in the baking oven based on um, observation and measuring product throughout the process, throughout the production process. Yeah. So we're advocating fact. We're advocating an idea that combination of neural networks and symbolic AI, what is now referred to as either hybrid AI, hybrid system, or they're also referred to as neurosymbolic artificial intelligence. Neurosymbol. You will hear this term more.
Mm, mm.
Uh, um, you were able to define narrow They're called ontologies. It's called a domain ontology. You can define domain ontology to be a baker, or you can define in a domain ontology to be an industrial engineer. Imagine this. Imagine that you have a collection of knowledge that makes up, let's say, a chemical engineer. Let's say someone who went to college, to high school, built that knowledge of chemistry, physics, math, everything. Like imagine that
Yeah.
stack of knowledge. Now imagine that stack of knowledge can be represented as a domain ontology. And imagine that if you had a reasoning engine, that you can then create this complete stack of knowledge, deploy this stack of knowledge onto a reasoning engine that's now aware of this knowledge. And now you start feeding the information from the environment. Now your reasoning engine is able to take this stack of knowledge, domain. Now this all of a sudden I am a chemical engineer, or I'm a baker, or I'm a food service engineer, because you created this stack of knowledge. I'm trying to say that ontology engineering is the thing that allows you to create that stack,
Yeah.
define that and create it, and then deploy it on reasoning engine. And the idea that we're proposing is that if you have a collection of this many domains, and if you stitch them together, you have what I think is going to be an AGI.
And so on that, if you are a young person right now, because like by the sounds of things, if we create these networks, which are basically expert level networks,
Yes, exactly.
what's the point of having any of these engineers or any of these professions? Because you can basically get
We're now touching on the issue that is very painful to me, because here I am sitting here, and I'm part of this transformation. We're automating. Okay, for now we're empowering people. Okay,
yeah,
for now we're empowering, but ultimately it's a valid question, and it's a true question, and we should be collectively, as a society, discuss this. Our governments should be, we should be, because I don't think this issue is being raised enough, and I don't know if our governments and our leaders understand well enough what's coming. Uh, Elon Musk, I'm sure,
yeah.
does. And so what worries me, I see where it's going. We're probably going to live in a time, you are for sure, you're younger too. We're going to live in a time of uh, hyper economic expansion. That's assuming we don't kill each other. By the way, I see, Dylan, either something that's really, really positive for everyone, or something that's really, really bad for everyone, but nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
And in order for this to be good and very, very positive, listen to me. We need to all hug each other and sing Kumbaya, and a lot of love, because the alternative is not good at all.
But as someone who knows what's coming or can see what's coming, if you were to put yourself in your younger
This
shoes,
is
what would you be focusing on?
listen. I have a violin in my office. I have to. I frankly believe that it's possible that even I am going to live at the time when all I have to do is to play violin, play with my daughter, and go to the gym. Make sure that I eat well and go to the gym.
So isn't that what you're saying? Anything can be replaceable, like in knowledge, but only thing it matters is that relationship. Like so isn't that
Yeah, that cannot
pretty
be
much
replaced. That cannot be
it?
replaced.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a for as humans, this is a beautiful time, right? Because all the hard work, all the things that you can outsource, and you can really
We need
live the life.
we need to learn, Jam. We need to learn to be to go back to tribal.
Mm.
We need to have a lot of love and kumbaya. No, of course, I strongly believe that. That's what we need. We need to. We need. Leave out, forget about guns, violence. I don't see any other alternative.
Yeah, yeah.
I suppose you got to give people a purpose again, because now work has become people's purpose, and so if you can automate that,
No, I
you've got to.
suggest we look far enough and assume that, okay, look, I don't know when you were last time in San Francisco, but San Francisco is full of cars that have no driver.
Yeah, Waymo.
On every intersection, I see 10 cars with no drivers all over the city. Come on, no. The people that drive cars today, they need to be thinking about what's happening, what's coming their way, as everything else, guys.
Mhm,
Unfortunately,
mhm.
I'm right there in the middle of all this. I see that. So I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm doing this because if I do this in uh, responsible manner, uh, I try. If I don't do this, other people will develop. I mean,
Yeah.
but it worries me. It worries me that we don't have the answer. How are we gonna live in 10, 15, 20 years? How are we gonna entertain ourselves? How are we gonna keep ourselves occupied?
Mm-mm. So Janadi, I have one question. Like, you've seen in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, where you live, a lot of young people coming and trying to create, the future, right? And someone like Dylan, going through the same journey, like, what advice that you can offer?
Advice.
Yeah, just a simple advice. I mean, should be focusing on creating something or just focusing on more yourself,
I think
be a good kid?
I think okay. If I were to start my life from scratch,
Yes.
I would do one thing that I didn't do, unfortunately. I'm trying to compensate with violin, but that's not a full replay. I would have learned math. I would have learned math.
Why is
I
that?
would have done that to the deepest degree. I would pick up the subject and I would learn math. Let's start with that. Um, it's hard to go. It's not fair to go to this other world without learning math. So I would like, if it's too late now, I'm not gonna do that. But if I were starting, I wish someone explained to me back when I was growing up that how important this. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. So
Mm-hmm.
math, Dylan, math.
All right, I'll get onto it.
Uh,
So I'll get onto
and,
that one.
and personality, personality, openness, humbleness, personality means.
Mm-hmm.
And Gennady, what's next for you?
Kaka. I'm telling you what I'm doing. I just told you.
Yeah.
I believe I believe in developing these. I believe in this idea of creating um, a reasoning
Yeah.
engine that can think about different things. So I'm doing that. Um, this is what like from my exploration. I mean, to me, it's science and technology. It's right where I wanted to be. Like, it's very interesting to me. We're doing bakery as our first vertical.
Wow.
We're doing bakery. We're basically going to create an autonomous bakery that creates in this case it's waffles, but
Wow. It'll be
it will
amazing.
think it will think about creating waffles.
That's
Wow.
so
Okay.
cool.
Um, my violin. I'm very like, okay. I'm spending time on that. I have a teacher. I try to practice. Try to get better at that. It's fascinating to watch my 4-year-old daughter growing, because I could see, because she was born right after Corona in 2021 in January, uh, and because we were all locked at home. she was growing right next to me, unlike my first two kids. And watching that brain develop, I was right there. Imagine, like, I'm working on all this stuff, right? Trying to write this paper on AI, reading a lot of books on AI. And here she is growing next to me, and I'm seeing like how she processes and absorbs the information, how quickly her brain develops. It's amazing. I think that, by the way, I think that's what's going to happen on a larger time scale. Maybe, okay, maybe it's 50s we're talking about. Maybe we're talking about 50s. I think we need to understand a lot better the how human brain functions. And I think the development of the AI and developing better AI will allow us, hopefully, build better machines for scanning our brains and for processing our brain, for understanding our brain, so that we can create AI based on our biology as well.
Mhm.
We're not there yet because our resolution is at 100 micron. That's safe for human brain, and we need to get to 5 micron resolution to really understand. So we're ways away. So maybe it's one of the things that we need to sort of. It will happen as AI gets better. It will help us to figure out a way to scan our brain. I think so.
That's amazing.
And I suppose looking back on your journey, Gennady, do you feel successful? And remember that your definition of success was, touching as many lives as possible and having that kind of positive impact.
I did a lot of bad things in my life. Listen, I did things in my life that I shouldn't have done, which I regret. And I don't think that I have whatever value, whatever life I have touched. I don't think I've yet to compensate it for what I've done. That's like what I feel wrong about. And so if I didn't have that, I probably would have said that I was successful. But I have ways to go to compensate like for other stuff. So I need to do a lot more.
Yep.
That's very interesting. It's all part of the journey, right? And working towards that success. And we could honestly sit here for hours. Like I didn't even realize that we've gone through more than an hour chatting to you, and it's such a fascinating conversation. Um, but I want to wrap it up here. We might have to have a part two ways down in the future. But throughout our conversation, I've been jotting down a few things which I think have led to what I would say is quite a successful life, at least from an outsider's perspective. And I want to share those factors with you. The first one is it's like you're always hustling. You're always taking opportunities. I think maybe that's a better way to put it. Always looking for opportunities, keeping your eyes open to opportunities and then taking them. And I think that's a really important aspect because without opportunities, you can never get the success, right? And so always, and not being too focused either, like having a wide horizon and letting the opportunities come and chasing those opportunities as well. I think the second and maybe the biggest one is you're incredibly relationship driven. There was times through there where you're talking about, growing your business, you just had to flip through your Rolodex because throughout your time, you're always investing in those relationships, trying to build your network. And then at the end of the day, when you need something,
All
you
about
can reach
people.
out to that
But
network.
no, of course, it's all about people. All only people, of course.
And I think more than that, it's also, yes, you have a great relationships, but you also connect the opportunities that you're looking for with the right people. And I think that's what stood out to me about your business was you were looking for the opportunities, they would come to you, and then you'd also be looking for the right people. And then connecting those two is really where your material success has come from. So I think that's a big one. And the last one I want to share is
You got it right. Yes, you got it right. Yes.
the last one is positivity. And maybe also communication as well. There's been so much storytelling and throughout today's conversation, and it's been such a joy to kind of listen to your story, and yeah, really glad we could line up today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really enjoy this conversation, Gennady, and also I wanted to add to that list, you know, your authenticity. You know, when you're talking to Gennady, it's like black and white, what you see, what you get, and that's the kind of person you are. And it was really nice to spend this hour talking to you, understanding your background, where you're coming from, and also where you're heading. Like I heard a lot of things probably gone over my head because it's all too tech, but it's a amazing conversation, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed today's conversation and you've taken something out of it, if you could please subscribe or follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this on right now. And you can see all of our conversations over at our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.